Hello everybody, this is DarkSun9. If you like this video or found it useful, please hit that like button. If you don't want to miss out on our future content, hit the subscribe button. And as always, you can catch us on Twitch every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our live show. Now let's get into the episode.
All right. Hello, and welcome to the 3Ds and the Unknown podcast. I'm Drunk, and I'm here with Delph,
Hello.
and I'm also here with Dark.
Hello.
For today's episode, we will be talking about the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is also known as the Sherman Ranch, which comprises 512 acres and sits just southeast of Bauer, Utah. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it is haunted. Or at least that's what people will tell you. Whether you believe the stories of shape-shifting skinwalkers, or buy the inexplicable stories of cattle mutilations and the UFO sightings, there are a few things you should know about the most mystical property in Utah. The ranch is shrouded in mystery and surrounded by literal barbed wire and security cameras covering every inch of the property. Now, little bit about the history of the ranch, which was named Sherman Ranch by its previous owners, Terry and Gwen Sherman. The couple, along with their two children, experienced bizarre happenings for as long as 15 months before telling their story, or more appropriately, stories. Archived in June 1996 Deseret News article, Frequent Flyers. The Shermans were reluctant to even then to talk about the paranormal activity surrounding the ranch because, as Terry put it, I don't know really what to think about it. What the Shermans experienced was enough to make them sell the property after owning it less than 2 years. The buyer was Robert Bigelow, founder of Budget Suits of America and UFO enthusiast. He purchased the property as the headquarters of the National Institute of Discovery Science, which is timed to an owner, which is a research organization found. He then sold the ranch according to UB Media, and this time to an owner who chose to remain anonymous. After blocking all roads to the ranch, securing the perimeter with cameras and fencing, and trademarking the name Skinwalker Ranch. A Utah real estate tycoon named Brandon Fugel came forward as the owner. Now that we touched briefly on the history, we will be exploring the paranormal phenomenon that has plagued the ranch and its inhabitants for over a century. I'm going to hand this over to Dark. Dark, please take it away, my friend.
Well, first off, let's see. Let me ask you guys a couple questions. Well, so, what do you guys know in particular about the Skinwalker Ranch?
Delph?
Well, I know there's been a lot of bizarre sightings that has to do with the actual skinwalkers, or what people refer to them as. There's also been numerous UFO sightings there, if I'm not mistaken.
So you just got the Skinwalker sightings and UFO sightings. Drunk, how about yourself?
Well, I know about some of the UFO sightings, and like I said, the mutilations. There's some stories that really struck me there. I don't know too much about it, so I look forward to you enlightening us on everything that we need to know.
So, well, let's start with a little bit of the back history of this basin that the Skinwalker Ranch is located in. It's the Uinta Basin in Utah. The first white men to actually step foot into this basin was back in the 1770s, and it was with the Spanish expeditions led by Fathers Dominguez and Escalante. But it really doesn't come into our part of the story until roughly right about the 1860s, when the Mormon leader, Brigham Young, he sent out a small expedition to the basin to see if it was inhabitable. And they really didn't see it as being any value unless you were like a nomadic tribe of peoples. So they kind of shoved that off. And in 1861, President Lincoln established the Uinta India Reservation that encompassed most of the basin. So this is where the Ute when they left the Provo Valley, they had to move into this Uinta Basin, which was about 150 miles to the east of where they were from. We're gonna fast forward to 1880. The Mormons returned to the Uinta Basin, and this is when they stayed. In 1885, miners prospecting the tribal lands discovered black hydrocarbon. So it was proven essential for varnish, paint, lacquer, and insulating materials, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually they lost out to like Congress declared that more than 7,000 acres would become of the Indian land would be reclassified as public domain. Well, they didn't want to sell their land and stuff like that, so in 1881, another reservation was established adjacent to the first one to accommodate the bands of the Utes that were, forced by the government to get out of Colorado. So that, they're bringing more down, and this was overseen by. Give me just one second. I got Major Frederick Benton with the 9th U.S. Cavalry, which also brought in another factor for where some of the paranormal activity could possibly come through was the Buffalo Soldiers came in, which were 75 African American troops. And they stayed there and they fought, back and forth with the Indians over the land. Well, later on, once the final breakdown happened and the reservation was basically set up permanently, there was reports that maybe one of the Buffalo Soldiers' graveyards was built over one in Indian, by the Native Americans on the land.
Huh.
So kind of like a reverse poltergeist,
Right.
if you want to think of it that way. It's like usually you see it's always this housing developed came in and built over Native American burial grounds, and this is kind of reverse.
It's very
kind
ironic.
of is. So we're gonna move even closer in history to where this account takes place. 1970, Congress had to divert a tribal river or tribal waterway through the reservation. So they built a reservoir to make up for this, damming up a little area. Well, since then, there have been accounts, and it's the Bottle Hollow. I believe that's the name of it. And there's been accounts of large aquatic giant serpents in the area, like, giant sea monster type things that you hear legends about. But they said that, they've seen them inside the lake or the reservoir. Another strange occurrence happened where not only do they have these giant aquatic sea serpents going through there are also a lot of lights will tend to be seen around the reservoir. So there was an account from 1998 where a police officer seen a light plunging into the water. It was like a bluish white light. It plunged into the water, immediately came out, and then shot into the sky. So, and this was, from 1998. And then in as recent as 2002, there were 4 young men and their girlfriends were on the beach of the reservoir when they saw a blue-white light, a ball of light fly out of the water. So we're seeing that it's not only just at the Sherman Ranch, it's the entire basin itself.
Right.
So
So it would be more than the 500, what I say, 512 acres of land that's considered the ranch. It goes beyond that, is what you're saying.
yeah, it's actually, the whole basin has had a lot of different encounters with a lot of their stuff is with more of the unidentified aerial phenomena
Right.
and seeing lights and stuff like that. But that's where we're getting closer to the actual Sherman Ranch, which, if people don't know, that's the real name. Well, it was the name given to the ranch by Terry and Gwen Sherman, the previous owners.
Right.
So before it became Skinwalker Ranch.
Right. Right.
So we're, like I said, we're seeing even activity past the, what was it? I mean, it was sold in '96 to
Right.
Robert Bigelow.
Right.
So this was, like I said, there's been more activity in the basin that has been reported all the way up to like 2002.
Right. Right. Right.
So this is 6 years after the selling of the ranch to the research center.
Right.
So
So it seems as if it's just a very broad general area instead of just the ranch itself.
yeah, it seems to be, like I said.
Attracting-
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish
Oh,
your
I
thought.
think that's just attracting all this strange, I guess, phenomenon to be happening.
Yeah, it seems it encompasses the entire Uinta Basin. So there's been, let's see, I'm trying to find where I'm at in my notes. So as we look into it, where the name Skinwalker Ranch, so we're going to look at some of the different things leading into it, and then we'll start talking more about the encounters that the Shermans had on the actual property.
Right.
So everything, I'm trying not to say, I'm like, oh, well, we're going to look at this entire history, but it's leading into where the encounters are happening on the ranch.
Right.
So in Southwestern tribe, they have the witches known as skinwalkers, and they're known to be able to alter their shapes at will, and they can take on characteristics of any animal. The way they do it is different. So if you listen to one group of people, it's this way. One group of people is this way. So
Right.
I'm not gonna try to. This is the way a skinwalker does it.
Yeah, it's
But
all kind of hearsay and how things work.
yeah, sometimes they have to be wearing the skin of the animal. Sometimes it's just they become the animal. It's kind of weird.
Right.
So I mean, it's weird, but it's not like way out there. Because I mean, if you look at like lycanthropy, that was people turning into wolves for a very long time.
Right.
So this is just where it's becoming were animals. So like were hyenas and were jackals. Look at the Egyptians. So they had all kinds of different things.
Right. Just varying descriptions in general.
Yeah. So if we look into if we just look at the Navajo Skinwalker, they're said to be able to use mind control to make their victims do things to hurt themselves or even end their own lives.
Right.
So I don't know why you would have to change the way you look if you can control somebody's thoughts, but it's a good way, I guess, to get away with stuff.
I suppose. I wonder if is there any noticeable accounts of this happening?
Like
Like but just like maybe different suicides or something that could be connected or linked to this area or place or somehow.
Well, I mean, for I'm trying to think. For mind control, I don't know if you'd be able to then
Not really
classify.
that, but more of like just bizarre like crimes, as in like bizarre suicides that just didn't really like make sense. Like he was talking about how like they would be able to make you harm yourself or do things like that.
Yeah, like that's the belief. But like I said,
Right,
trying to
right. That's
prove
just
somebody is
hearsay.
someone's like,
Yes.
hey, no, 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 you want to jump off a cliff? It's
Yeah.
kind of go, yeah, it's kind of get proof of this guy really wanted that guy to jump off a cliff, that kind of thing. And so it's hard to say if there have, I'm not going to be like, well, no, there's never been an account because I've never had to deal with it. So I'm not sure if other people have, they can come forward and say, what they had happened to them. But as far as I know, it's if it was intentional or it actually happened, investigations haven't shown
Right.
where it's like, hey, this guy did this because he was controlled by a witch. I mean, so so trying to find my note real quick on where um I got a story from a woman who supposedly encountered a Navajo skinwalker. It happened in a she was delivering papers in Arizona. It's a little bit away from this story, but it actually tells about her encounter. So she delivered newspapers in the in the early mornings as newspaper deliveries go. And while she was doing her rounds, she heard a scratching on the passenger side of her car when her baby was in the seat next to her. So when the door flung open, there was a horrifying creature she described as a half man, half beast with glowing red eyes and a gnarly arm that was reaching for her child. And so this is it. It doesn't give like a whole big spiel, so where it's a full on description. So we just get basic, you know, it's this half man, it's half beast. It had this one arm reaching in, and it was gnarled and misshapen and the creature had glowing red eyes. So she went to an all night convenience store. Outsiders, may not know what's going on, but that was, basically her account of it. There was another, it was a security officer who was actually doing work on a reservation ground, and when he was working at night, he seen this creature while he was doing his rounds, and when his friend slash co-security guard showed up, they chased after the creature, and it flew down the road and then disappeared into the night. Well, they followed the tracks, and you could see the prints in the ground, and it looked like paw prints. But when they got to a certain distance, everything it just stopped, dead stopped. So that was another encounter that's happened on reservations with skinwalkers.
Now, actually, I want to point out that we have someone in chat who's from Montana, and they say that a lot of reservations up there for the natives believe really big in skinwalkers, and that some of her friends that are natives have seen, like, and have like a bunch of stories because it's an actual big thing there for them. So
Oh yeah, I mean it's a big thing from all around. You know, I know. I'm trying to think. I know there's a lot of like the little people stories that
like
go around, and
gnomes.
yeah, gnomes, little people.
Yeah.
Oh, the Hobbit tells.
Well, not really the Hobbit tales, but more of like the Fae. If we were to put it, if we were to put it to like Anglo-Saxon stuff, it'd be more like the Fae type. So it'd be like the elves and fairies and stuff like that. It's they kind of share some similarities, but they have each culture has their differences.
Right.
So let's see. You guys have any other questions, or does anybody in chat have any questions?
Um.
We take a quick Q&A.
Yeah.
Couple minutes from chat.
You have any questions? Toxic. You might curious on. Might be able to help answer those. Unknowns.
Say again.
Said, let me find it.
Or do you guys have any other questions before we start?
I don't have any questions. I'm still like reflecting on it. Like I like the whole backtrack to the Mormons. Like that's really interesting to me.
I was trying to be as as thorough as I could find
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, see,
When
I'm real big in knowing the backgrounds of things. So like going back and English, hello, dating back to all the way back to that. It's like it's really impressive,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate
I
that.
concur. Yeah, I concur as well. Because you don't really, when you think of Skinwalker Ranch, I mean, it's only with certain like recent, like modern reasons why you hear about like from the 70s and 80s and 90s and onwards. But you don't, you never like really hear about the history like back in the 1800s and early 1800s, like Dark was telling on through about what has like really transpired like the prior like 100 years or so before it.
Right. Now, we do have a question. It is, what sparked up the topic?
For the Skinwalker Ranch.
Probably.
Well, we started looking through all the different types of things that we wanted to cover when we started looking at episode ideas for the podcast, and this one was actually a really big one. So if I'm going to date myself, how old I am, I was actually 13 when this story broke.
Right.
I was just born.
Yeah, so I've had interest in this for a long time. So it just felt like I really wanted to do it, and it gave me an opportunity to buy like 2 or 3 books that I really wanted to get.
So I just needed
Things
the
fell into
excuse.
place as it were.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I mean, the books that I got, they're really well done. One was It's the Hunt for the Skinwalker
right.
from give me a second. It's Colm Kelleher, who was actually a scientist that worked. I don't think it's his real name, but he was actually one of the scientists that worked for NIDS for underneath Robert Bigelow, and also from the reporter George Knapp.
Oh.
So it was, paranormal stuff for a very, very long time.
Also had another question.
What we got?
It's kind of not related, but are you guys want to do more serial killer type next or murder mysteries? But I just want to say, what our main focus is paranormal things, like unexplained mysteries, not necessarily like killers or
Okay, it's
murder
crimes.
stuff. Yeah, crimes.
Yeah.
It's more,
Well, what about
aliens,
paranormal serial killers?
ghosts, paranormal serial killers. Now that could be covered actually. I didn't think about that one.
What about the Watcher?
All right, look at this man. He's over here throwing out ideas, new episodes.
Watchers.
But yeah,
The Watchers will have to be like a thing we got to do.
yeah, that's a really good one. I actually know a little bit on that one. All
I'll
right.
bring up the black-eyed children.
Yeah, the Black Eyed
Oh
Children.
yeah, Black Eyed Children will also be an episode, so get ready for that shit.
Yeah, we got a whole list of episode ideas. It's just when we're going to get to them is going to be
Yeah.
the catch. All right.
So,
Any more questions?
all right, so we'll take
We
a
got.
couple more questions beforehand, or
Mm-hmm.
if nobody
That'd
else
be
has got it.
I don't have any
Fiji
questions.
Mermaid.
Fiji Mermaid. There's one.
I see that. I just happened to look over at the stream to catch it.
Conspiracy.
Um,
I'm big into conspiracy theories, so we could.
He's so
probably,
big he can't even say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I actually enjoy looking up stuff for that, so we could probably do some stuff on that.
I say it'd be
how about this
touched
one?
up on.
Yeah.
How about I have a question for chat? So, I seen Fiji Mermaid from T Fox. Toxic Myths is wanting to talk about conspiracy,
She also mentioned gnomes.
and she mentioned gnomes, which we can totally do gnomes because that's paranormal.
Cryptid.
Yep.
So, how about this one? In the next 3 minutes, if somebody wants to put in there, we can go and we'll look at chat and see what they might like us to cover.
Yeah, that'd be good.
See, why doesn't Drunk just throw up a poll right quick?
Well, I want to see what they're interested in learning about.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to do a poll when we're just like, hey, do you guys want to know about aliens?
Yeah, if I'm gonna do a poll, I'd have to go up and pull up the 50 ideas we got and
You
in the chat.
unprepared asshole.
That's a fact. Anyways.
So, I mean, anything that chat wants to bring up, we'll bring it up.
Yep. Just go ahead and
Yes.
spell some stuff
You got a
out.
question? We have an answer.
Or if we can't, we'll point you in the right direction.
We'll figure something out.
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, what kind of conspiracies? I hear a bunch of. I love conspiracies and stuff like that, but I'm not seeing any specific conspiracy that strikes your fancy.
Are we talking about governmental conspiracies? Are we talking about paranormal cryptids?
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
point out. Let's try and stick towards the paranormal conspiracies, encrypted. Try to avoid governmental stuff. That might be touch
Well-
base on another day.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Well-
but we're 3Ds in the unknown, baby. Conspiracies are
Unknown.
I
unknown.
mean, for the most part,
we are the conspiracy. Okay, bro.
we are. Alright, fair. Yeah. Name a conspiracy. We'll look into it. We might touch on it, might not.
We love feedback. We really want to know what you guys think and what you guys want to listen to.
So, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let chat mull it over for like 10, 15 minutes, and I'll start talking about the very first encounter that the Shermans had on their brand new ranch.
Let's hear it, Dark.
Okay. So, right after the Shermans moved into their ranch, oh, excuse me, give me just 1 second. I'm sorry, I had a heartburn hit me real quick. The aliens. Sorry. I seen the aliens pop up.
Yeah. Fun. We actually will be talking about some alien-related stuff here shortly. So, if you want to hear about some alien stuff, just pay attention. We'll be here. Oh, okay. D Fox out here with a whole lot. Let's see. He's got aliens, Loch
It's
Ness.
Loch Ness. Loch Ness has been debunked, so that's probably not going to be a thing. Modern vampires, Waverly Hills Sanitarium, both.
We've actually talked about
Hopkinsville Goblin. Haiti Zombie.
the
I
zombie
believe we
plant.
talked about that in length. I disagree with Fox. Very well, very well. But I doubt Nessie will be a thing.
Yeah.
That's been fully debunked
Now,
for quite some
about
time
the
now.
Waverly Hills thing, we might not necessarily do it, but the three of
That
us.
may be a IRL episode. We
Yeah.
haven't fully decided
I
what
was
that's going to be
about to
yet.
say that we've actually talked about doing
In length.
IRL videos, like live podcasts of us going to these haunted places, and actually filming, like videotaping our experiences there, what we see, what we don't see. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's definitely might be something we could do.
The
All right.
lock itself.
Okay, let me move in so we can move along this thing because I have a feeling it may be two
Yeah,
episodes anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead and continue.
all right. So when the Shermans first moved onto the ranch, they kind of had that, oh, this is our new paradise. Because they moved in from kind of a city life from New Mexico to bought the ranch just to get away from all the busybodies and gossipers in New Mexico.
Right.
Well, when they first started bringing cattle onto the property, Terry happened to look across the field and seen an animal coming in their direction. Right? So he watched this animal. He put down everything that he was carrying. And as it got about 100 yards out, it looked like a big coyote. Well, it was about 400 yards out. And then as it got a little bit closer, they realized it was not a coyote, it was a wolf. It was gray, and even from 300 yards away, they could see that it was wet from moving through the wet grass. So at 300 yards, I don't know if you guys have went and looked at 3 football fields away, how big something has to be at 300 yards to be able to tell if it's wet.
Bub, I'm from the south. I know, Bub. It's a monster there.
So as this thing got closer, and they noticed that it was kind of a weird behavior. Like it was very calm. Like it seemed like it was a tame wolf. Right? So it was like almost zen-like. Just, so calm. The calm had come over the wolf. And as it got closer, it started walking real casually toward the family. So it was coming up to them, and I believe Terry was even able to pet it, and the family came over to pet it.
So you're saying, sorry to interrupt you,
No, you're fine.
this coyote wolf that they seen so far out, that's that big, came over to them and they were able to pet it?
Yeah, because it came up to them like... So let's put it in perspective. So this wolf, because it's actually a wolf, as they got closer, they were able to get a full-on description. Hey, this is actually a wolf. When it approached them, it was very calm, and it seemed like it was like a tamed wolf.
Right.
So it's docile.
Yeah, so it was, this is a 200-pound gray wolf.
Right.
So when it approached them, it like was just very calm, and everybody was able to like pet it and stuff like that until about 75 feet away there was a corral, right, with a few Angus cows and a calf.
Right.
Well, the cows had moved to the other side of the corral, and the calf was kind of, doing what kids do. And what is that over there? You know, what's that? Kind of just stayed on that side of the corral
Right.
with its head to the fencing. So out of nowhere, the wolf was, in close proximity to the family, and then it shot over and just grabbed the whole calf by the top, by its head.
Mm-hmm.
And so they ran over and they were beating it, they was kicking it, and it wasn't affecting this wolf at all. The son brought over a baseball bat, was hitting it with a baseball bat, was not expecting this wolf at all. Now, the size of this wolf, like I said, it was a 200-pound gray wolf, right? But the size of it was, let's see, the son stood about 6 foot tall, and this wolf actually came to his chest, or almost to his chest, in height. So you're talking right about 3 to 3.5 foot.
Right.
That's a pretty big wolf.
It's massive.
And this thing clamped onto this calf's head. Well, them beating it and stuff like that was not too, paranormal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we get into the meat of this, so they beat on it for a little bit. Then Terry actually wanted his Magnum. So his son got him his 357. He fired once at the wolf, hit it. You could hear the flesh tearing, and you could hear it, going into the body.
Right.
Did not phase this wolf.
You said 357, right?
357 Magnum.
Now, if you all don't know, that is a very big bullet. Very powerful.
And also, if you don't know, it will blow a good sized hole through most things.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, they could tell that it made contact because you could hear it rip through the flesh.
Yep. You can probably hear the thud.
Nothing from this wolf. Not a thing. He fires 2 more times, both making contact. You hear the tearing of the flesh. You hear it hitting bone. Still no reaction from this wolf. It's still clamped down vice-like on this calf's head. So he kind of looks around frantic. And he's like, get the 30-06. Well, a 30-06, you can down an elk at 200 plus yards.
Now, it's
right.
more of a small
This thing
bullet.
is
A lot of powder, though. A lot of power behind it.
Yeah.
Right. And
so
that's a big creature, an elk.
Yeah.
So an elk at 200 plus yards, he takes aim at 45 feet. Cracks a shot. You hear the loud, it echoes through the valley. Everything is dead silent. He actually sees it impact the wolf, watches the tuft come, from the pelt, flap up, hears it crack bone. The wolf looks at him, and he has these piercing light blue eyes. He said it seemed to like penetrate his soul. And he fired off another round. So, and he felt sorry for it the first round, right?
Mhm.
Because this is 45 feet away. He's taking a 30-06. And he was like, no, whatever. The second round, he wasn't too worried about it. He just let her rip. So the wolf itself didn't phase him at all, or seem to phase him at all. So that's 3 rounds from 357 Magnum, 2 rounds from 30-06. No blood. The wolf just seemed to trot away after that. So it gets about 100 yards away. Terry, which is Terry Sherman, I probably didn't say that earlier, but Terry Sherman is who we're talking about. He decides that he's going to go hunt this thing down. So his son grabbed the 357, Terry had the 30-06, and they went to tracking him. So the wolf had already got 100 yards out. So they tracked it. They finally came up to, there's a Russian olive trees that border a creek on the property, right?
Mhm.
And they made their way through these Russian olive trees, which are pretty thick. I don't know if you've ever seen one. If you want to look one up, and you can put it up on stream so everybody knows kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about the Russian olive.
Can do that.
Just to give a comparison, to see what they have to, what they had to make their way through. So it'd be like a
Right.
Russian olive tree thicket, I guess. It would be a thicket. I don't think it would be a grove. But while you're doing that, so as they made their way through this thicket, they were still able to see, they caught a glimpse of the wolf. They could see the gray silhouette off in the distance, and then they found the footprints, and these were huge footprints, right?
Right.
Really big footprints. No sign of blood at all, because they're moving through a creek bed. It's real soft ground. You should be able to pick up trace amounts of blood. If you shot anything, especially if you shot something 5 times,
Right. It's bleeding out,
it's
especially with the calibers that it was shot with. Yeah,
it,
100%.
it definitely should be bleeding. But
Yeah.
there's no sign of blood. There was no sign of blood on the vegetation as they tracked through the Russian olive trees.
Which
Right.
is
Nothing.
right here. I got pulled up for us.
Which
Yeah,
is highly strange.
Yeah.
So imagine a thicket of those. So like a tree line of those.
So it'd be very dense vegetation it'd have to go through. No signs.
Yeah. There's no way you're not wiping blood on some part of something.
Right.
But the weirder thing about this, so they followed these footprints up to the creek itself.
Mm-hmm.
When they got to the creek, the footprints completely stopped. Nothing. And this is very similar to what happened to the security guard who had an encounter with the Skinwalker at night. They followed the footprints, and they were big wolf-like footprints, and then they just abruptly stopped.
Right. Now it's crazy to think what could have happened. We have skinwalkers, which takes forms of animal, right?
Yeah, I mean you can speculate. Did it take the form of a bird at that point in time and just take off?
Or did it take form of a fish and swim through the water?
Yeah, swim up the creek. I don't know if it could swim up the creek. I haven't seen pictures of how deep the creek actually is, so it's hard to say.
Well, I mean, if they're towards a basin, I would imagine it's at least 3-4 feet deep minimum. unless they hit like a small rocky spot. So I mean, there's possibilities, but nobody really knows what could have happened.
Yeah, like I said, it's all speculation at this point.
Yeah.
So, anybody? I don't know if
Man, I'm just so curious on how they could hit this wolf with what they did and not find anything. Especially if it's sitting there latched onto the calf in a single spot, taking 3 to 5 bullets, and they're not even being blood in that spot. Especially with a 30-06 at that close, it's going to rip through anything. Because it's, what, muzzle velocity, if I remember right, like 3,000 FPS out of the muzzle.
I don't remember all the ballistics on a 30-06.
It's really fast. I think it's like 116 to 200 grains of black powder, and it's a small bullet, but there's so much power behind it. It's a penetrator. It's what it does.
Yeah.
So for it to like hit something that close with that much force behind it, it's got to go through it. That being said, why wasn't there any signs of it actually being hit?
No, there's no sign of it, bleeding out. It's not, trying to lay down. Because usually, if you hit a deer and it's not an instant kill shot, they go try to lay it in the mud.
Yeah, but even then, it's like if you hit a vital spot, say lung, with even an arrow, just an arrow, could be a broad tip arrow, and it's going to pour the blood immediately.
Oh yeah,
you're going to find it penetrate easily.
You're going to find the sign for it, but like I said, but this wasn't the only encounter that the family had with the wolves. So let me. So a few weeks later, after the family had calmed down, Gwen Sherman was returning home. They had a Chevy Chevette, which I don't know if you guys know what a Chevette is.
I know what it is.
But anyway, for anybody who doesn't know, it's like a small, like 2-door compact car, very boxy. So Gwen was returning home from work, where she had got a job with a mortgage company in the area. And when she got out to open the gate to the property, as soon as she closed it behind her and she got back in her car, she noticed movement to her left, right? And when she noticed the movement, she looked over, and it was another huge wolf, which had gotten within 30 feet of her, silently, just like ninja its way in.
Right.
And it was staring, it was right outside the car window. Well, when she looked at the wolf and it looked back into the window, she noticed that it had the same light blue eyes as the previous wolf encounter. Right? So the animals, to put it in a more perspective, the height of the door, well, the let's say, so from the roof to the ground on a Chevette is 4.35 feet tall.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And she said that this wolf stood over the roof of the car. Like, it had to literally hunch itself down to look into the window at her. And it was, say again?
To me, is a description of a dire wolf.
Yeah.
Like, no joke.
Yeah.
That's like the only like canines you ever hear about that are that size is like just ancient direwolves.
Well, another description of it was the head was way too large for its body. Like she
So
says,
it's
she describes it as the head was bigger than the body, but the body was still huge. So at that point, you know, she slammed the gas,
right.
drove up to the house, and then the next day she went and actually decided she was going to go complain to the local tribal office about, you know, the wolves, because they have expensive cattle. I mean, these are Angus cattle.
Yeah.
And she was wanting to know who owned the wolves. And so when she got to the tribal office and, you know, she talked to them, nobody owned wolves. That's what, you know, nobody. This is what the tribal office was telling her is, you know, nobody owned wolves. They haven't been in there they haven't been seen in that part of Utah for like 75 years. Like the last wolf in Utah at that point in time had been shot in like 1929.
That was the last sighting.
Well, that was the last
Reported
wolf.
sighting.
Yeah,
Right.
reported wolf. They were basically hunted out, and then
Right.
they were transplanted to Yellowstone in like 1995. So, so she left kind of mad about it, but like I said, she recalled that, you know, the animal had to lean over to get to the window. Like it bent down and hunched over to get to the window. Now, this wouldn't be the last time, but the encounters that they had with the wolves, it seemed to be in the distance from here on out. Like they would catch glimpses of them over the next few weeks in the distance, not anywhere up close or anything like that.
Right.
So that was, you know, their wolf encounters.
Right. Now, I know we've not got to it yet, and I'm hoping we do, but, dang, lost my train of thought. Pretty much, can you describe the house, like, the house that they're living in?
Well, the homestead, you know, it's a ranch house.
Right.
But see, when they moved in, like I said earlier, they were kind of, oh, look at this, it's our new place. You know, they kind of, you know, when you get something new, you kind of overlook its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, you know, it's a typical ranch house. It's got a big gate. The one thing that they did say that after the occurrences, there were things that they noticed that should have been dead giveaways about something wasn't right with the property.
Right.
Was that there was deadbolts on every door in the house.
Deadbolts.
Deadbolts for
Like
every
front door deadbolts.
Yeah,
on
like front
every door.
Every
Bedroom,
door of the house.
bathroom.
But the weirdest part about it is, okay, so every door's got deadbolts on it. But the weirdest part about it is every door has a deadbolt on the inside and outside of it. So, what it was either to keep something in or keep something out, or keep something in if something got in.
Right.
So, yeah, that was the house that they noticed after they started
Who were
having.
the previous owners before the Shermans?
I I'm not really sure of the name.
I had it earlier, but honestly, I couldn't
Yeah,
tell you without
I
looking
don't
at
have
it
the
again.
name off the top of my head, but I know that there was another weird thing that they noticed about buying the property.
Yeah.
There was a clause in the
Okay,
purchase.
Kenneth and Edith Myers
I think so.
Yeah, Kenneth and Edith Myers, that was it.
from 1934 to 1994.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's when they sold the property to the Shermans.
But there was a clause when they sold it that stated that they would have to contact the Myers before they dug anything on the property.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
Intriguing.
they
Did
kind
they
of took
give
it
an
up.
explanation to that?
No, not that I read about anything like that. It was just they kind of blew it off, as maybe
Yeah,
senile
yeah.
old people. They don't want us
Right.
digging up like an
And then
heirloom
when
or something
push
like
came
that.
to shove, they didn't give a damn anyway. So,
Yeah. So that was that
intriguing.
part of it. So I'm gonna see if Chad or anybody's got questions to bring up about the wolf encounters.
Absolutely.
See Spoopy in the chat. Spooky.
I actually want to bring something up
Go ahead.
that I noticed earlier, and I just had to look it up again.
Okay.
Indeed, go
They
for it.
sold the property to... I blinked out. What the heck? I just lost my train of thought. Anyways, Edith and Kenneth Myers sold the property, right?
Yes.
Now, listen to this that I looked up. I actually looked them up.
Okay.
The Myers?
Yeah, the Myers.
I know they moved to Salt Lake City.
They died March 3rd, 1994 is when Edith died.
What?
Yeah, it's in the Desert
They sold
News.
the property in 94.
It's Desert News. So,
Deseret.
yeah, Desert News. And not only that, it had Kenneth's death date as well, which was...
You're not about to tell me it's 94.
And he died in April 26th of 1987.
That's
Now,
weird.
so, my theory on that is... Did they have children with the same names that were juniors?
I do not know.
With that being said, Edith and Kenneth moved to the Uinta Basin Ranch, made their
Uinta.
permanent home, but it says that their deaths were 94 and 87.
That's weird.
So she was the last to die.
Yes.
And she died how long after selling off the property?
Well, they sold the property in 94.
Right.
It says she died March 3rd, so it's early in the year.
T-Fox had a question real quick. I believe when he shot it, it was early spring because they just moved in. I think it was right around,
That would put it in the March time frame.
yeah, about March, April-ish, because they hadn't moved in the cattle yet.
Right, so they could have brought the property beforehand and not moved in till said
But
date.
here's the question. Was the sale final before she died? I mean, obviously it would have to be for it to go through. But how close did Edith Myers die prior to the deal? When was the deal finalized?
That I don't know. I do know
Yeah.
that I'm looking right here, which is in the Desert News Archives, March 5th, 1994. She died on March 3rd, 1994. And it states that her husband died in April 26, 1987. So, I'm assuming the deal had to be finalized before they moved in, and especially before, she passed away. And if the time frame of them getting there mid towards the spring, it would fit that time frame. Now here's another question that no, it's not really a question, but it's kind of a theory.
Go ahead.
Could the wolves be like a spirit of Myers, of the Myers?
Well, it could be, but
I mean, obviously that's not the thing, but everything's a possibility right now.
well, yeah, everything is a possibility. I mean, even to this day, they're still doing research out at the ranch.
Right.
We covered it. It's completely covered in security cameras, barbed wire, and
Yep.
all kinds of sensors.
Every inch of the property. No blind spots.
But again, like I said, T-Fox, I'm pretty sure it was about springtime. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it was springtime, because by the time winter rolls around, it gets a little bit more than just the wolves. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into like some of the unidentified aerial phenomena that took place
Right.
over, basically, because that was really what happened during the summer, and then we might stop it there and then pick up the actual cattle mutilations and moving over to Robert Bigelow
And the more
Brandon
recent
Fugel.
owners.
Yeah.
Right.
In the next
In the
episode.
next episode.
All right.
That sounds good.
All right.
Because there's just so much information to honestly go over.
Yeah, there is. And I knew we were going to. Sorry.
No, go on. No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
I just said I knew we was probably going to, ring up. And there was a couple other things that I really wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
And
Right.
because there's other phenomena that's happened that was not really explainable.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
I want to interrupt you real quick.
Go ahead.
We have hit the hour point, so we got 30, 40 minutes. So let's keep this part brief and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the some of the UFO sightings that the Shermans had. Well, unidentified aerial phenomena. That's what they want to be called now, I guess. In this new hip age. They're not UFOs anymore. But
I prefer UFO.
I prefer UFO as well. First, let's talk about, right before we go into the UFOs, was they started noticing things going missing on the ranch. So, like, Gwen would be making dinner or something like that, and she would put a cooking utensil down, walk away, and turn around, and the utensil would be gone. And then there was many times that, Terry, he had like pliers stolen and stuff like that while he was out working, and really it was like a post hole digger that just completely went missing. So that was, some other things that was happening on the ranch. Things just coming up missing, which from earlier, we were talking about the like little people.
Right.
And that, that could be a theory behind the disappearances of, small appliances. The post hole digger, that's another thing, because that's like a 100-pound post hole digger they're using to mend fences. But
yeah,
that, just food for thought. There's just a quick little side note to stuff that they had mentioned. So by the summer, they had moved all their entire herd of cattle in, right? Which this is Black Angus and Simmental cattle. Well, Terry's nephew came to visit, right? And he really wasn't the outdoor type. He lived in the city his whole life, And one night, Terry and his son asked him to accompany him while they were going outside for a walk at night. And, they began walking. They were checking the fence line, checking on the cows. It was dusk. It was just a beautiful clear sky. And then a few hundred feet to the north, the ridge was getting dark. And then there was a flash of light that hit them, kind of like headlights, right?
Now it hit him like the light did, or like?
Yeah, well, you know how like the light hit him, not like it physically struck his body,
Right.
but the light hit him.
on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I was saying, it was like kind of like an RV had pulled up on the property. So he didn't want trespassers, because especially with high-end cattle. So maybe somebody hunting his land that he didn't want anybody out there hunting on. Again, high-end cattle. Well, they started making their way toward the lights. So they're about 200 yards away, and as they were approaching it, where it's up on a ridge, they were lower than the RV could see, right? Well, but the RV was steadily moving backward, away from them, or what they thought was an RV. So the lights were steadily moving back. Well, he was thinking maybe, they had some kind of night vision equipment, or somebody was outside telling them, hey, look, they're coming in. Well, so they start moving a little bit faster, because there's a fence line just past, a little bit farther back from where this RV they thought was backing up. So he was trying to keep them from hitting the fence. And as they increased pace to try to catch the RV, it would maintain the same distance away from them as at any pace. So it was pacing them, and it was only like a few feet off the ground. So as they were chasing it, they actually hit a fence line.
Uh-huh.
And that's when they realized that this thing wasn't going through the fences, it was going up and over them.
Hmm.
And they ended up chasing this thing to the very last pasture on the end of his property. And they were gone. They thought they had him trapped, because where that pasture was, it's the Russian olive trees. That's the thing that separates that side of it, right?
Yeah.
And they got about 10 yards away from it. And they stopped. And what they describe as the RV is actually now in the air above them. It climbed smoothly, silently toward the top of the trees, which, about 50 feet high, crested the tree line, and they saw the shape of a vehicle, silhouetted against the horizon. It was oblong. They said it looked like shaped like a refrigerator, with a headlight in the front and a red light behind it. They all just sat there in silence and watched it slowly disappear over the trees into the distance. No sound. And the nephew actually left like the next day and was told that he would never come back to the ranch.
Yeah.
And that was the very first like UFO encounter with the refrigerator shaped UFO.
Interesting.
Now, another encounter happened with UFOs, and this one actually happened with Gwen while Terry was out of town, right?
Mm-hmm.
They he went out of town, was doing something. She came home from work. The kids were staying at a friend's house, I believe. So she was the only one on the property. So she had made dinner, sat down, ate, was washing up, and then she noticed what she thought was headlights in the middle of the pasture that she could see through the window. Well, she was watching this vehicle through the out there in the pasture, just sitting there, and she said that she could see a window in the vehicle, right? And it had like a little table, and after 2 or 3 minutes of watching it, a figure sat down at the table. And when she noticed it, it didn't. Maybe it was somebody just sitting there reading the paper at a table, but she was getting ready to go outside and tell him, "Hey, why are you in our pasture? This is farmland. You shouldn't be here." When the door opened on the side of this vehicle, and she said that all she could see was like the black silhouette of a huge person or being. Because again, she said that when she realized what she was looking at, that it wasn't an RV, it was a craft. It was the same refrigerator shaped craft that her husband had seen, that this being actually just encompassed the entire doorway. And so that was, those are just a couple of the encounters with the unidentified flying objects and stuff like that on the actual ranch itself. During the time with the Shermans, there was many more.
Right.
But I think I'm gonna go there, and we're gonna finish this investigation in the next episode.
Before, there's one story I'd like to hear, but
Go ahead.
I think, if I remember right, it's towards the Bigelow era of when he had it instead of the Shermans.
Which one?
The unseen entity. You know which one I'm talking
Oh,
about.
I wanted to save that one for the next one.
All right, we'll save it then.
Yep.
It's my
We
favorite.
will save
It's a
this
very-
all for the next episode.
It's a very good one.
Yeah,
It's very creepy.
So, well, to be honest, with as much information,
Oh, you cut
Say
out
again.
there, bud.
You cut out there, bub.
oh my bad. I was saying, just with the information that we've had, so still, can you not hear me?
It cut out again, and then you pop back in.
With the information.
Live podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Discord. Not sponsored, by the way. Hashtag.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Go home, you're drunk, he said. Alright, anyways, you were saying, Delph.
With the amount of information.
It's the amount of information as we have for this episode, and what we will be sharing with you next episode doesn't even really scratch the surface on it. Like,
No, it
all.
really doesn't. It really doesn't.
So,
I mean, I think History Channel is actually doing a series on the Skinwalker Ranch.
They are.
Right,
I
right.
think they're
So-
entering into like a new season actually already.
I think it's like the second season.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's just there's so much to cover from '96 till now,
Yeah.
and there's so much stuff that's still going on to this day at the ranch. I mean, there was literally a newscast from October of this year that had strange encounters on the ranch. We'll have to link that
Right.
because you have to see it. There's so much that actually happened when I think me and you watched that drunk, the actual news report,
We watched bits and pieces of it
the one where
with the fire.
fire just starts out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was.
It
Just thinking
was
back about it, just it makes you question so
freaking
much.
weird. So weird, so just random. But so what we'll do is, if anybody's got any questions or
Yeah.
stuff like that, you can catch us every Friday.
So, anybody got any questions on anything you've heard or what's going to be happening? We're going to leave the floor open for 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes.
In about 5 minutes.
So, any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll help you as best as we can. Is this going to be an every Friday thing? We are 100% going to try and do it every Friday.
Yes.
Now, with everybody's personal lives, you can't always count on it to be every Friday. But we are definitely going to try.
That's why you also follow us on Twitter, so you can be updated.
Exactly. Twitter, Discord, we're always here. And if you're wanting the Twitter, I actually
Go
forgot
out
to
on
add.
Twitter and the Discord.
ATU.
Yeah, it's case sensitive, so let me type that out for you. 3DsANTheUnknown, right?
And if you're just now catching the podcast on YouTube, we actually have last week's episodes on YouTube. Or
Yep.
not the last week's, but the first episode, which was Dogman, is up on YouTube.
You got 3DS
Which I can link up.
ATU, that is the Twitter handle. It is case sensitive, so be wary of that. For the YouTube channel, it should just be the Drake Kingdom.
Drake Kingdom.
Yeah, Drake Kingdom.
Yep.
I'll type that in here as well. Boom. Check that out on YouTube. We got our last episode there. We covered a little bit about the Dogman.
We're actually hoping to go and revisit that come the first of the year as well.
First of that, we have a treat. Exactly. We're going to be revisiting it, planning to.
Planning to as long as schedules align.
Yeah. So we're hoping that works out. We got plans for that. I'm not going to spoil anything,
Nope.
but we actually have big plans for that. So, any more questions?
Trying to think of. And if you guys do go check out the YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe. The subscribe and like, because that really helps out right now.
Oh, 100%. Actually, I want to drop the link in chat. So
Okay.
It's very early YouTube stage, so every little like and sub helps out tremendously with that.
And leave comments, please.
Comments
I
on
think we got 1 or 2 comments, and it's like, if there's something you guys don't like or something that we need to improve on, just please let us know.
I think Tanner's already got it for us. What a beast. Alright, bet. Me and Tanner out here already
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, like I said, we're definitely gonna touch base again on this one next week, because there's still so much more. We just now got to summer of 1996.
Yep.
Or summer of 1994.
Pretty much.
Yeah, 94.
Yep.
So we got another 12 months of this.
Yep. 12 months of stuff. Alright, any more questions about anything you've heard? Also, if instead of question, if you want to hear something, like you mentioned some ideas earlier for us to do, you know, message us in Discord or personally.
Actually, you can
Just
if you've
comment
got,
on the channel.
Comment on the channel, that works too.
or no, a better way. If you got suggestions or things that you want to have us look at, 3DsAndTheUnknown at gmail.com
Yep.
is our email address. So if you got something that you want us to look into, deep dive, research, shoot us up with an email, and we'll get back to you fairly quickly. Turnaround time is pretty quick in
Yep.
email. So
Alright, well, give us a couple more minutes for questions or anything, and then we'll be out of here.
So what have been your guys's takes on the research? You guys think of anything we might need to work on?
Like for
Subject
the
was?
Skinwalker Ranch or upcoming?
Or anything? Just have you guys ran into any problems with your research, or
Thus far.
The Dogman one was pretty easy. There's so much actual like public stuff for it.
Knowledge.
Yeah. Skinwalker Ranch, I had a little more trouble like finding stuff on until I actually got a grasp of everything. That's when the information actually started coming in for me.
yeah? Because I think you were having a problem because you thought it was just skinwalkers on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, I was very unknowledgeable at first, I'll be honest. But once I started to understand the depth of everything that's happening, information just started flooding in. Like this, the intro, just all of that was stuff that I just randomly found, and then the Kenneth and Edith Myers dates, like death dates, like I just stumbled upon that an hour before we started, and that it blew my mind, and I had to bring it up. It's something to think about.
It's very overwhelming, the amount of stuff for this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of figuring out exactly what you want to talk about and what people might want to hear.
Right.
Because I don't want to sit there and go like, it was a long dark night, and fluff everything.
Yeah.
But I want it, to be enjoyable and find the pieces that,
Yeah, pieces that fit.
Yeah.
You don't just want to be blowing like random steam. Just
let me blow smoke up your ass.
Yeah, pretty much.
Blow smoke up your ass.
T Fox said, very in depth, very enjoyable. We appreciate that, man.
I do appreciate that.
Pulling up on the hour 30 mark, so we're going to call it here. I appreciate each and every one of y'all coming out, listening, talking. That's actually awesome. And again, I'm drunk, and I'm here with my man Delph and Dark.
Yo.
And got any questions? You got our email, you got our Discord, you got the YouTube, got the Twitter. Feel free to send us anything you want, really. Questions, answers, ideas, you name it, we got it. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you in the next one.
Have a good night.